Be safe, kids.
Today I'm going to try to recreate the look of the discontinued Kodak Aerochrome color infrared film using black and white infrared film. Stick around to find out how. This all started when Analogue Wonderland put up a sweet deal on Rollei Infrared 400 film. At the last minute I realized that there's this technique called trichrome and that I could possibly recreate the look of the very unique and interesting and discontinued Kodak Aerochrome. I watched the 8-Bit Guy episode in which he takes 3 black and white photographs filtered different ways to recreate a color photograph. It will be linked in the description below. Long story short, I found this little page on Flickr and realized that I could try this. The technique is to use 3 different shots. The first one you take, which is just an unfiltered shot, is your kind of baseline shot. And then you take one filtered blue.
You know the filter factor of the blue filter? I think it's something along the lines,
which meant I had to open up a stop, which I just went 1 step slower on the shutter speed. And then you do the infrared, which is an additional 5 stops, which is why motion is just not a thing you really want to do with these. My first results were a little iffy. I had some scratches where I had a surprising amount of trouble loading the ultra thin film onto reels, but I mostly think it was because I developed it in Rodinal, which is a lot contrastier and noisier in certain situations, and I decided to try instead HC110 to kind of tamp down the not only the graininess but also the extreme contrast, especially on the filtered stuff. And sure enough, I got a promising result. It wasn't perfect, but it was the beginning. So I took it out again to see if I could do this.
When you hear me calling, it's you and me. 'Cause I cannot fake it.
In short, the technique is that you find your photograph, you get your composition, and then basically you take a normal frame. And then you use a blue filter, and you have to stop down 1 for the blue filter I used. Let's say I would shoot, I think the first one at like 1/500th of a second at f8 or 11, because also infrared focuses at a different point. That's super confusing. You'll want to read up on that. Older lenses have markings for infrared, which is super helpful. Anyway, I shot everything f8 to 11, so I wouldn't have to worry about this. And then you have to shoot with the infrared filter, which is basically you can't see through it. You definitely can't see through it. If you can, yeah. So you stop down 5 additional stops for this. It's a hardcore ND filter. I didn't have a shutter release for the Canon T70, so I just put it on self-timer. Anyway, so let's see how I pulled this together and if I pulled it together. What I'm going to show you here is how to take these 3 photographs we just made. One with no filter, one with a blue filter, and one with the standard infrared filter. And I'm going to show you how to convert them and turn them into a color infrared photo, kind of like you saw from Aerochrome and stuff like that. So what I have here is I've scanned these with my camera with the Fuji X-T2 on this one, and you'll see various things like this one looks pretty plain and this one looks a little different. You'll see some subtle differences, and then you'll see the infrared. I went ahead and edited these, tried to kind of get the blue and normal ones a little nice but evenly toned and everything, and I made the infrared one super dramatic. Select these 3. I'm going to control or right click on my mouse and going to just edit in Photoshop. They open in Photoshop. It takes a second. Through the magic of editing, you will see that pretty quickly. So here we go. And before I go too far, you will see the 3 photos up, and you're going to have to combine all 3 of these into one file, but there's a trick to doing that. But what I like to do is, my finger got in this scan, so I'm going to go ahead and just clear up that corner really quick. This is sloppy, but there we go. Okay. And if there's something too bad in here, I'll get rid of it, but overall that's nice. And these have to be saved. So if you do that, you just have to wind up saving it as a TIFF or as a PSD. It's not a big deal, to me at least. I'll get rid of this little flare right there, but mainly on this one, all I have to get rid of is that power line. And you'll see the good thing is the sky is so dark on the infrared shot that you can't even see it really, so I'm not even going to bother. But you'll see this, to me, is a pretty nice infrared shot already. I don't mind it, but I want to make it look even more alien or cool, and let's just face it, this is kind of fun. So I choose this one as my base, and I'm going to undo that because, fine, I'll save it, whatever. Go to File, Scripts, Load Files into a Stack. And this is a cool thing I learned. I learned this trick from a YouTube video, and I'll show you that in the description, by the way. Go to Add Open Files. Sorry. This is one reason I had you open all of them. But before you click on anything, make sure to attempt to automatically align source and images. This will save you a lot of headache. So we're going to hit OK on that. Give it a second. Magic of editing, it'll be instantaneous for you maybe, unless I keep yammering this whole time. It did a pretty decent job of aligning these. So what I like to do is I like to go from here, and just to make life easier, I label them accordingly. As you'll see, you'll need to make each channel of this photo. Like, there are different ways to do this. This is the easy way for me, and it's very adjustable, as you'll see. You'll make one green, you'll make one blue, and you'll make one red. So I next convert this to a smart object, and we'll skip through this because it takes a second even on a pretty decent computer to convert it into a smart object. Okay, so we got them all. So what we do now is, because they're smart objects, you can non-destructively edit. So I push Command or Control U, and that gives you the hue saturation controls. You want to do it through the image adjust image things. You don't want to do layer adjustments. You want this to be clipped to your layer, and I'm sure there's other ways to do this, but it's just to keep life easier. So this will be green. You choose on your green spectrum. Now, I went through a bunch of things. I found very saturated and very dark works best on these. I'm sure there's a good reason why, but the good thing is, you'll see these settings. The good thing is that because they're smart objects, you can just go right back and adjust it. And we'll look at that in a second because we'll need to do that. Same thing here on the blue layer. Command or Control U. Colorize, don't forget that. And this will be the blue one, which is why I mark it, because it helps me remember which one I'm doing. Saturate it, make it nice and dark. Okay. And then finally, red. And I like to do this through a sense of drama. That was just pointless clicking right there. To instill a sense of drama for the reveal. So I will show you the next step in the way I view it, just because it's kind of fun. So you go to linear dodge, and you change each layer to linear dodge. And then you're going to see it here, linear dodge, add. You can already see that it looks pretty nice. So you'll notice it's a bit washed out, so all you have to do is kind of click around, and you'll learn which layer does which as you go, and you'll just make it a little darker or a little lighter according to your taste. Oh, there we go. Now we're talking. You can go ultra saturated, under saturated. I like a little bit of punch here. There we go. There. Now it looks pretty alien. That doesn't mean that's your final result, but you can fine tune this stuff. You can remove parts of layers. You can play with opacities. You can just do your standard edits. I saw some Aerochrome that looked closer to this than to this, but you can crop the border off all you want. you can keep it. Here's something kind of fun. There was a guy walking across this parking lot when I was shooting, and you'll see ghost images of them here. And you also see where, let me go to a better cursor, you'll also see where the layers don't quite line up, because it just works really hard to try to get all of these leaves kind of on top of each other, and it does a pretty good job in my opinion. You can add more blue to this thing, and I'll show you what I did in a moment. Yeah, dodge burn, do your average layer thing, and then save it. I save it as a PSD generally because it's a little bit smaller, and I heard somewhere that PSD saves more color information, so I don't know if that's true. But yeah, there you go. Hopefully that helps. And we're going to look at my other ones now. If you like things like this, different things that kind of cross over between this digital and film world, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications so you catch my new videos. I'm trying to do multiples a week. It just depends. Production on this one got a little out of hand, so I wanted to make it better instead of rushing it out. Join my Patreon. I've been kind of a crappy Patreon person. I'm going to try really hard to not be, especially now I'm jobless. Thanks, especially this week to SRAD for joining my Patreon. I really appreciate the support, and it's going to be more and more worth your time and money. If you do this, please feel free to share the photos with me. I'd love to see what you do.